All right. Good day, everyone, and welcome. I am Nicole Jackson, Director of Education with the Center for Environmental Justice and Health, better known as CEEJH. And it is my honor today to welcome you to our next round of Climate Justice Fellows final assignment presentations. Started in 2023, our Climate Justice Fellows program is a virtual training and implementation program designed to educate individuals on essential themes and tenets of environmental justice and climate justice. Candidates demonstrate a commitment to EJ issues and have deep connections to frontline and fence line communities, better known as EJ communities. Fellows increase their awareness of environmental and climate issues, as well as develop skills to empower their own communities affected by environmental injustices. The fellowship program consists of individuals who progress through an intense curriculum with 10 to 13 targeted modules and capstone projects addressing environmental and climate justice challenges, with our senior fellows, who we select from previous cohorts, expanding their projects, delivering presentations, conducting research, writing, and or working closely with CEEJH Inc. staff. Having formerly served as a fellow in the first cohort and senior fellow in the second cohort, this year I am proud to have redesigned the program to be more practical and global oriented, as well as include a few new modules. As a core part of this new approach, everything is centered on real-world applications that we at CEEJH call empowerment science frameworks. And that's empowerment spelled INpowerment. Empowerment science includes community-based participatory research, citizen science, community-owned and managed research principles, and the collaborative problem-solving model, with a focus on equitable planning, healthy zoning, and sustainable community development. Throughout the program, our fellows engaged with assignments rooted in actual case studies and were consistently encouraged to adapt and tailor the work to specific needs and contexts of their own community. This philosophy culminates in the final assignments, which you'll see today. In a significant shift from previous years, we challenged fellows this year to proactively propose and develop their own initiatives, moving beyond traditional capstone projects. But their learning wasn't theoretical. They rolled up their sleeves and dove into technical work alongside seed staff on current projects, from policy analysis and air quality monitoring to developing educational content for this year's symposium. This practice-based model was implemented on a scale marking the first time that we expanded our fellowship across our global network. We were thrilled to welcome a remarkable talent group and talent pool of diverse talent from across 16 different countries. This incredible diversity has profoundly enriched our discussions, broadened our understanding of how we are all connected, and how environmental impacts affects our communities in immeasurable but yet interconnected ways across the globe. If you or anyone you know may be interested in joining us for our next cohort of fellows in 2026, please reach out to us at fellows@ceej.org. Applications will open this month and we will forward one to you. We'll also have two information sessions, one on November 10th at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time and one on December 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The presentations you are about to see are a testament to the fellows' dedication, creativity, and global perspectives. I'm going to ask everyone to please keep our questions until the end for all of our fellows' presentations, but feel free to put questions or comments that you have for fellows in the chat or the Q&A box. And now it is my pleasure. We're going to hear from four fellows today. Nouria Mohammed Salah from Tunisia, Antonio Hernandez, who's based in Maryland, Jamarni Overby, based in Maryland, and Octavia Nettles, based in Maryland. Our first fellow that we're going to hear from is Mr. Salah, based in Tunisia. Nouria Mohammed Salah is a distinguished scientist. Oh, excuse me. We're going to hear from Nuria, Mrs. Salah. He is a sustainable development leader and scientist from Tunisia, currently serving in the country's Ministry of Education. His expertise spans climate change, the Sustainable Development Goals, food safety, and emerging fields like blockchain and green hydrogen. He holds a master's in biology and an advanced health diploma. He has further complemented his knowledge with extensive professional development. His leadership is demonstrated through his role as a country's mentor for the Climate Reality Project, the UNFCCC Observer, and the Global Ambassador for Singularity University. His work is focused on integrating the Sustainable Development Goals into national planning, using systems thinking to address our world's most interconnected challenges. So please help me in welcoming our first Global Fellow, Nuria Mohammed Salah. Oh, we are not hearing you, Mr. Salah. No sound yet. Oh, perfect. We can hear you now.
You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes. Thank you very much. I I am proud to be tonight with you. It's night here in Tunisia. My family are almost sleeping now. Welcome another time. I will share my screen. You see my screen? Hello? Yes.
Yes, we see you.
Thank you. Project title is about Curtis by community solar and soil farm. Location is the Curtis by south of Baltimore, at Maryland. Prepared for the final assignment of CCEEJH. The project summary is and the background is and problem statement of Curtis Bay as a history of industrial pollution, coal terminal incinerator, chemical storage that left behind toxic brown file, resident primarily working class black immigrant and low income family suffer from asthma, cancer cluster, and lack of access to safe green space or affordable energy. Proposed installation is this project will transform a vacant brownfield site into a dual-use community solar farm and phytoremediation-based urban agriculture hub, which is compounded in three. The solar panel will provide affordable, locally produced electricity to nearby households. The phyto remediation crop, the sunflower mustards will detoxify the soil following following the CEEJH soil testing protocol. After remediation,
We lost your audio again.
sorry.
You're back now.
Okay. A proposed solution, this project will transform a vacant brownfield site into a dual-use community solar farm and future remediation-based urban agriculture hub. Solar panel will provide affordable, locally produced electricity to nearby households. The future remediation crop, sunflower mustard, will detoxify soil following the CCGH soil testing protocol. After remediation, the land will transition in a community-managed farm, producing food and pollinator-friendly garden. The project vision from positioned land to power and food for the community. Community engagement plan, principle of co-design. Residents are a leader in decision making. The project is guided by justice and equity. Those most impacted by industrial harm benefit first. In 3 rounds. The round number one, story mapping the history of harm and envisioning future uses of the site. The second round is about the crop and solar design workshop, example food crops and pollinator habitat. The round number three is about the governance design, community land trust, structure, energy bill sharing. The student trained in soil testing, data collection, and solar panel installation. The community partner, local organization, South Baltimore Community Land Trust, Curtis Bay Community Association, the science partner, University of Maryland, CCGH, soil sampling remediation protocol, the policy advocacy partner, environmental integrity project, pushing policy scalability. The expected outcome of engagement, democratic decision making about land use, and building long-term community capacity in environmental monitoring and renewable energy. Budget pilot, which is the pilot phase, almost $15,000. The soil testing and remediation about CCGH partnership is about this $10,000. The future remediation sunflower planting and monitoring is about $5,000. The solar pilot 10 kilowatt installation on site is costing about $20,000. The community workshop and training program, $10,000. Administration and contingency, about $5,000. The timeline is 80 months. The first one from the month 1 to 3 is about the site testing, resident mapping workshop, and about from the month 4 to 6 is about the sunflower planting and initial solar design. From the month 7 to 12 ongoing future remediation, youth solar training, and from the 30 to 50 month solar pilot installation, resident oversight board formed from the month 16 to 18 about the evaluation, expansion planning, and transition to community governance. The evaluation of metrics, justice-oriented metrics, many, for example, the remediation, reduction in soil, lead, heavy metal, the energy equity, many of households receiving discounts, solar power, the economic empowerment, job created, soil and internals, solar apprenticeships, community governance, establishment of a community land trust board, health and well-being, increase and green space access, community reported benefit. Alignment and scalability, Maryland Brownfield Redevelopment Act, legal mechanism for repurposing toxic land, Maryland Clean Energy Job Act 2019, founding a channel for solar apprenticeship, Baltimore City Land Disposition Program allows the transfer of vacant land to community trusts. The scalability potential is the statewide replicate across other Maryland brownfields, national model for combining solar energy and soil remediation in industrial community, global adaptation, example of a crane, sunflower, featured on war contaminated soils, and from Indonesia, the solar and the mangrove remediation with the indigenous Dayak land rights. The sixth assessment, electrical harm corresponds was zoned for toxic industries for decades, concentrating pollution in a low-income minority community resident endured environmental racism, displacement pressure, and chronic disease burden. The current owner, the site is a vacant brownfield with absent industrial ownership, now eligible for community acquisition. Strategy for land justice, establish a community land trust to secure the site for permanent community use, ensure equitable benefit distribution, discounted energy bills, local food access, job opportunity, and the local Hughes Maryland Brownfield Redevelopment Act of 29, Baltimore Land Disposition Program for Community Acquisition. The over. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nora. So I enjoyed reading through your presentation, and especially I like that you included information about land justice and then just the justice component overall, and also community engagement. But I was particularly drawn to the technical approach that you shared in terms of the solar and soil model. And I wanted to ask you specifically, if we look at that model, I wanted to ask you about adapting some of the techniques to your country, to Tunisia. So I had a question about that. So how can the soil, I'm sorry, what did you call it? The solar plus soil model be tailored to some of the pressing needs in Tunisia? For instance, could solar power help run irrigation for farms there? And what would it look like for the community food production to focus on crops that are critical for local food sovereignty?
Yes, I get the model in in Tunisia. Yeah, I share my screen if you like. You see my screen?
Yes, we can still see your screen.
Yes. I get the model of Tunisia of yes.
I think we lost your sound again.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. So if you wouldn't mind, just answering that question one more time for me.
I want to see you my screen for the Tunisian model. I don't have enough data of this project, but I resumed it in this following project. Adapted project title is Community Solar Oasis, a potential location for the Gabis region is located in the south of Tunisia, specifically a community negatively impacted by the phosphate industries pollution of coastline and oasis. The contextual analysis and the problem statement is the core environmental justice issues in Gabs are not brownfields, but the devastating impact of the phosphate processing industry on once lush coastal oasis ecosystem. The curities by resident in the context are the Amazigh, it's Arab word, the Amazigh, Berber community of Gabs who have historically tended the unique coastal date palm oasis. Small hoarder, farmer, and fish folk whose livelihood was being directly damaged by industrial pollution. The historical and economic harm to readers, environmental destruction, industrial wastewater from the phosphate plant has contaminated the sea and devastating marine life and the local fishing industry. Airborne pollution has damaged the historical palm groves and reducing agriculture yields, loss of livelihood and health impact, many health impact as you can see. Uh,
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate you for sharing your assignment with us. So moving on, we're going to move on to our next fellow, Antonio Hernandez. Antonio is a visual and audio storyteller based in Washington, D.C. area. He is currently the digital video producer for the Hip Hop Caucus and previously served as editor for WUSA 9, our local CBS news affiliate here in DC area. He's also a freelance producer. Antonio has collaborated with numerous organizations, including Green Latinos, Johns Hopkins University, and the Prince George's County African American Museum. And he's also the creator of Indelible, an ongoing documentary series highlighting performing artists in the DMV and Baltimore regions. Please help me welcome Antonio.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm actually part of a trio along with Jamani and Octavia. And I wonder if Jamani, you're able to go ahead and share the presentation so I can go ahead and get an intro.
Well, while Jamani is sharing, I'll be sure to introduce both Jamani and Octavia. So Jamani Overby is a dedicated leader in specializing in community engagement, environmental advocacy, and cross-cultural communications. She's co-chair of Taking Nature Black Conference 2025, where she designed a multi-day event to empower the Black community and highlight environmental justice efforts. Her work includes managing the Rise Above project, to build flood resistance community in DC and spearheading a nationwide student climate competition to amplify youth voices. A graduate of the University of Maryland, Jamani holds a degree in government and politics and African American studies and is currently advancing her skills in the University of Pennsylvania's executive program for social impact strategy. Octavia, Octavia Nettles is also based in Washington, D.C. She's a professional focused on building people-centered and operationally sustainable workplace environments. Her work sits at the intersection of corporate responsibility, organizational culture, and practical people strategy. Grounded in the study of organizational leadership, Octavia believes that human resources is the foundation to success centered on trust, relationships, and creating space where people feel safe, valued, and empowered to do their best work. At her core, she believes that sustainable systems are the start with people. So let's welcome our trio, Antonio, Octavia, and Jamani.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a great intro. I just want to say I'm fortunate to have been part of this group. Very talented, very dedicated folks in Octavia and Jamani. Um, as you can see on the title card, our podcast pitch for our podcast, which we called EJ Out Loud. Of course, EJ being Environmental Justice Out Loud, essentially saying that we want to elevate, highlight those voices in and around the EJ movement. So this is just a quick outline. After this slide, Octavia is going to handle the overview and trailer. But as you can see, we're going to talk overview of the project. We're going to show a trailer, the thesis, breakdown of the episodes, then later on the impact plan, the justice co-creation statement, and a little bit about the marketing and metrics. And this is us, of course. Myself, Jamani, and Octavia in nature doing her thing, probably looking for some birds. I think are you holding binoculars, I think, in that
Yeah, and a
photo?
camera.
Yeah, oh, yeah, there's a camera on your right shoulder. Um, so that's us.
Thank you so much, Antonio and Nicole, for that warm introduction. And I am happy to see everyone here that's watching this recording or that's here now. Nora, you had an amazing presentation. I'm happy that you stuck around to listen to us and what we are bringing to the table. So overall, EJ Out Loud, a journey through environmental justice, we are thinking of as more than a podcast. It's an oral archive and a participatory act of storytelling. Our thesis asks a guiding question. What does justice sound like when spoken by the people living it? And hopefully, across these 5 episodes, we explore the environmental justice as both a story and then also a system, really just grounding national and international conversations in the lived realities of frontline communities, scholars, and youth activists. And each episode that follows, we are talking a bit about what we are calling a decolonial story flow, which means we are trying to redirect the extractive storytelling. And instead of traditional practices, we are hoping to use reciprocal knowledge exchange, which means that community members aren't just subjects, and that everyone that we are partner with will be co-shaping how their stories are told, interpreted, and shared. Ultimately, EJ Out Loud invites listeners to listen differently, to hear environmental justice not only as a theory, but as a lived practice. And we are reaching anywhere from Baltimore to the global South and across generations to keep the movement alive. And so on our next slide, we'll start with an easy trailer into what we want to start our pitch with. Ooh, Jemani, I don't think we have the sound.
Yeah, Jamani, you have to actually unshare your screen. And then when you go back to share your screen again, before you click on share, make sure you look on the left-hand side to click share sound under the Zoom settings.
Partnerships, fellowship, and care. First,
We got it. Thank you.
welcome to EJ Out Loud, a journey through environmental justice. I'm here with Jarrell Clay, the esteemed Associate Senior Director of Digital Production from Hip Hop Caucus, but also just a good citizen of the world in his own right. This is episode 4. We'll be talking about community in the EJ movement, partnerships, fellowship, and care. First question I want to ask is, Jarrell, who are you, what do you do, and what brought you to environmental justice?
Thank you, Antonio, for having me on EJ Out Loud. Happy to be here. I'm Jarrell Clay. I come to environmental justice with a bit of a tricky journey here. At my core, I'm a communicator, I'm a storyteller. My trade is in design and PR. And I first came into the energy space altogether through a PR firm called Edelman. Edelman represents many of the Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies. And while I was there, I was on their energy and transportation team. But I did not get into the climate justice space until well after I left Edelman and did work for the labor movement. In the labor movement, I was connected to a gentleman from Blue Green Alliance that allowed me to see the connections between the labor fight and the climate justice fight. And that's what led me to the environmental justice work. Since then, I've been doing the work for ActionAid and Hip Hop Caucus. And most recently, over the last 5 years, it's been doing digital strategy and also production work for the Hip Hop Caucus.
You're listening, you're watching EJ Out Loud, a journey through environmental justice. I'm Antonio Hernandez, CEEJH cohort 2025. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for playing that, Jamani. And this slide really goes down to our breakdown per episode and how we really want to make sure that there's a throughput line through the episodes. We're going to start with our environmental justice breakdown. We'll talk about some specific issues, grab some inspiration from the OGs in the movement, grab some inspiration from the youth of the movement. We're going to learn how does those foundations create action, and why is it so important to have literature that is from an action oriented standpoint. And so into the next phase of our pitch and presentation, we are going to be going through the different episode breakdowns, and we are going to start with episode 1.
Yeah, as Tavia mentioned, the first episode will be an intro to environmental justice. You see here a photo of Dr. Bullard from, I believe, his lunch keynote at the CEEJH conference. I think he riled everyone up, including myself. He's one of the aforementioned OGs. Van Lathan, formerly of TMZ, who has a podcast now called Higher Learning, talks about good OGs and bad OGs. I think Dr. Bullard is a good example of someone who's a good OG, still doing the work, still doing, yep, exactly. Oh yeah, the Friday evening keynote, yes. So he was good OG doing the work, still doing the research, still speaking, still inspiring people. So example of guests we would have on this episode would be Dr. Wilson, of course, of CEEJH, as well as Ms. Vernice Miller-Travis, founding director of the Environmental Justice Initiative, the Natural Resource Defense Council, and REACT as well. And then so we kind of wanted to give people intro to EJ, what it is, and how we got to this point. Speaking of collaboration and oh yeah, and then I was also responsible for episode 4, so that's why that explains the order. So we weren't bouncing around between our partners. Um, So episode 4 will be about partnerships, fellowship, and community care. So a few folks I had in mind for this episode included Jarrell Clay, who was part of the trailer. He's also my direct manager at Hip Hop Caucus, but he didn't have any editorial say in this presentation. Just want to say that. Also, Mama D, who's active in Norfolk, Virginia. She has an organization called Teens with a Purpose, and she does a lot of work with youth and artists as well. And Don Richard, independent artist, formerly the group Danity Kane, um, both artists, major label artists, now independent, has her own production company and has done a lot of work in environmental work from animation to storytelling to video. And she's always been speaking up about EJ issues herself. And so all this, you'll see a clip here that is going to be in the top left of an interview I did with Don Richard. And be in fellowship and work with other artists. Even though these are like positive things, you're putting it in your art. Sometimes you're like reliving the tragedy, or you're talking about things that used to be there that aren't there anymore. You're talking about people who you knew that either passed or people that moved away. So how are you and others in your community, artists, just friends, like how y'all taking care of yourselves?
I think that's a great question, Antonio, and I don't have the answer to it because one of the things that I really am grateful for, people like Mia X and Cess 405, if you don't know who they are, incredible advocates of New Orleans, Louisiana, but they're talking about the mental health aspect of climate crisis and climate injustice. That is something that is not spoken about, right? And already in our cultures, to get help and therapy is like taboo, right? But now to add a second layer to it, we still have not addressed the pain and loss of what we went through with Katrina. A lot of us were rooted and we come back and we don't recognize the cities or the states that we were born in. And a lot of times too, just infrastructure and loss. Like for me, I lost my grandfather in Katrina. So even addressing the reality that the family configuration is forever changed. So every day is a trauma adjustment, is reliving that trauma and telling that story. So we take it day by day. I think I've been blessed where I have a strong foundation in my family and we are honest about it. We talk about it. We remember, and we don't let the trauma overcome our family. If we feel these moments of true hurt and withdrawal, we talk about it.
Speaking of collaboration and being in fellowship and work with other artists, even though these are like positive things, you're putting it in your art. Sometimes you're like reliving the tragedy or
Action and true. And so fast forward.
We got a little bit out of order there, but again, I'm Jamani Overby, and I had the honor of focusing on 2 of the episodes. Nature versus Nurture, which was episode 2, which is the second episode of EJ Out Loud, Journey Through Environmental Justice, and it's exploring how identity, experience, and the environment shape people driving today's environmental justice movement. And this conversation brings together 4 visionary women whose work expands to community organizing, restorative park engagement, and policy advocacy and funding, which are all really important to how we're able to do this work and continue to do the work. And kind of getting into our workflow and the through line of what this looks like. We're going to talk more about the issues here and how each of these women are working within the community to address the issues in their own way. Sometimes people are doing it as a way that is really focusing on the nature aspect and connecting people to nature so that they have a better appreciation for the environment, and then connecting them to the justice piece. And then some of them are also working on that nurture aspect and how nature nurtures us and how it's healing this environment, our environmental injustices, and how we're using and how we're able to like really just be in community with each other But through this dialogue, the speakers reflect on how nature, the ecosystems and histories that we inherit and nurture, including the movements, the mentors, and the moments that mold us, have influenced their approaches to justice and how they have defined and redefined themselves in the movement. Many people have been working in the environmental justice space for decades, and as we are humans, we flow and we ebb and we flow very often, and sometimes how we show up in this space looks different now than it will 5 years from now. But I think what is beautiful about this particular set of individuals that we have as possible panelists and guests is that they continue to show up in the environmental justice space even as their own personal lives change and their own personal interests have changed. So some of the folks that I have listed here for our guests include Lydia Lawrence, Latricia Adams, Akima Price, and Mariah Davis. And you can see their affiliations here on the screen as well. But this was another recorded conversation that I did, and I wanted to take a clip out of it because these conversations and panels that were at the CEEJH conference have really influenced how we approached this project and how we kind of drew on key things that were important and that what people want to continue to hear about. So take a look at this clip.
I did a lot of work nationally, but I was asked to help found the Friends of Anacostia Park in 2018, and because that was a park I played in, love that park. I love cookouts. I love water. It was a dream come true, and so fast forward, I founded the organization. Never wanted to be the executive director because I knew that I didn't have the couth because it's a partnership with the National Park Service to maneuver that relationship. But I definitely was on the programming side of just building out the programs. And so because of that, what I'm currently doing now is evolving this practice called restorative park engagement, which is where it's basically trauma-informed environmentalism, but intentionally building a network of case managers, social workers, probation officers, like people who work with stress communities, using parks as either a backdrop to what you already do. You don't even have to talk about nature or recognize the birds. But as you know, once you get out there and you having this deep conversation with me and this bird flies over, I'm gonna go, right? And so I just believe in the power of nature as a backdrop. And then you could also get very intentional and talk about just the power of service. So stewardship, like, how to empower people to care for it. But I'm also not big on like the expectation of you saving the planet, because I work with people in survival mode. They're like, and the planet's gonna far outlive us. Nature's so much bigger than us, right? So I don't care if you recycle. I don't care if you can describe a watershed. I do care if you trust me enough, or your mom trusts me enough to let you go out on this boat, right? Because a lot of our communities are very fixed and you ain't going out in the woods and da-da-da-da. So So this restorative park engagement work, I'm working for it now nationally to kind of establish the model, collecting the research and case studies to let it really be like not that it's not legit, but legit in that bigger pool of what other people need to validate it as successful. Because people have always been like, oh, you do great work.
So that's a little bit of clip of that conversation, but I really love I chose this clip in particular because I feel like it's kind of the perfect example of when it comes to really being in community, and whether it's somebody that is coming, so experts in environmental justice that are coming to help frontline communities or support them, or I think that key point is trust and having that trust to do so. So I think that is that entry point into the EJ breakdown and the issues and how to address that and to get people to take action is through that trust. So this episode really asks listeners to think about how do their experiences in nature and stories shape your sense of purpose and fight for environmental justice, and how do we reconcile personal growth with collective liberation. And then I'm going to hop to episode 5 because that's the other episode that I was a part of. So if it's confusing, sorry about that, but this is just our
Speaking
order
of collaboration
and
speaking of
oops, okay, here it is. And episode 5 is what collective action requires. And the guests that we have possibly for this panel included Dr. Mildred McLean, Mariah Barber, and Delegate Jamila Woods. And looking deeper into this is what is going to close out the full podcast. And in our season finale, we wanted it to bring the series full circle And as Octavia had shared through the full through line, literature was really important for us to end off on, because of we want people to continue to take action, continue to have this conversation a part of what we're doing together within this podcast. So this episode unpacks the unseen labor, trust, and imagination that the environmental justice movement has made possible. It has an intimate conversation and shared reflection, and this is a multi-generational panel, kind of getting through the OGs and the youth and kind of merging that together in this last panel on how people work together to organize communities, sustain momentum, and build power for generations to come. Um, similar to the symposium, thinking of how Mariah Barber and her participation throughout the course of our fellowship has been really inspirational through our thinking of storytelling, and how a lot of how culture is also invested in creativity is invested into the work that we're doing, especially what the youth are bringing into the movement. So wanting her to ground the conversation with one of her infamous poems that integrates hymns and rhythm and ancestral connection, and really kind of focusing on principles like Ujima and Imani, including collective work and responsibility and faith as a foundation of what led to the start of the movement, and how these principles are going to carry us through the setbacks and the current threats to equity and environmental justice in the nation. So this episode really asks listeners to think of, what does solidarity look like in practice, and how do we build and maintain trust in movements that are constantly tested by political resistance and burnout. And this was really not only to like fire people up to take action, but to also continue to inform themselves and be in community with people. So throughout this conversation, each of the guests will also share some of their key takeaways of literature that have been really influential to keeping them going through the work, or even just learning more about themselves. And I'll share some of the book recommendations, but it includes Revolutionary Power, An Activist Guide to Energy Transition, Dumping in the Dixie, Race, Class, and Environmental Quality, We Speak for Ourselves, a word from Forgotten Black America, and Africa and the Environmental Revolution. So this is also tying in some of our global themes that Octavia is going to share a little bit more about as well. And this is really just the blueprint for what the future of environmental justice, to be rooted in empathy, accountability, and a shared vision. And so just reminding people that we will continue have to come again together, and then hopefully leave them wanting more for our next round in the series.
Thank you so much, Jamani. And the final episode that we will describe is episode 3. And this is called Generation to Generation, Passing the Torch, which captures the intergenerational heartbeat of the environmental justice movement. Really how wisdom, memory, and courage are all passed down. We are looking to have voices like Dr. Jalone White Newsome of the White House Council on Environmental Quality, Shashwanda Campbell from the South Baltimore Community Land Trust, organizer Theo Daniels, last I have seen was at Taking Nature Black, and then Cameron O'Gillespie, who is a journalist in the environmental space. And this episode really bridges the civil rights foundations with youth-led climate activism. It is placed intentionally as the series midpoint. We're really trying to mark our shift from understanding environmental justice to truly enacting environmental justice. We are hoping that this conversation doesn't only talk about mentorship, it truly practices it. And we want to make sure that our recording process is intentionally conversational, with the host and guests co-creating all of the questions and themes, so that the passing the torch isn't so much metaphorical, it happens in real time during our dialogue. We are really trying to focus on both method and outcome when it comes to what this episode embodies. So we want to care about a very balanced narrative and analysis. So after a little bit of critique, we've decided to integrate just overall post-interview reflections from the host that connect these stories to structural issues like policy, power, or maybe access, just ensuring that the systems part of the story are overall visible, kind of like what I was talking about in the beginning. And really, this episode is reminding us that while movements evolve, our roots remain the same. And a shared belief that we have a shared belief overall that all of our communities deserve to thrive. And with that being said, I am going to pass it to Antonio in order to transition into our impact plan.
And I'll go through this fairly quick. Essentially, we like to partner with outlets who are in the same frame of mind. You see here WPFW 89.3 FM in DC. Their motto is Jazz and Justice, which is fairly self-explanatory, but they have a range of programming from talk shows discussing current events nationally, internationally, locally, as well as just really good DJs from folks like DJ Underdog, who has a weekly radio show. Tacoma Radio, a similar thing based in Tacoma Park. And of course, the national NPR. And we have a few stations in the area, including WAMU, WYPR as well. And then just some outreach that we had. We had some fairly, I'll say, easy targets. For something that's fairly new and something that's kind of a niche topic, we went with a conservative play counts of 50 per episode. With something like this, I'm sure we'll go far and above. But we like to work with the guests themselves to help promote it, including things like Reels, TikToks, YouTube Shorts, things like that. And we also like to outreach to different organizations who also are in the climate media space as well. And as you see here, we talk a lot about community consultation, using and utilizing local knowledge, and of course, power sharing. And I know we have some questions in the chat, and I know we're coming up on time, so I want to be able to make sure we get to those questions.
Three.
And
Oh, did you have anything to share briefly about the co-creative statement, and then we can show our little commercial break?
Yeah, yes, of course. I can definitely piggyback on what Antonio is saying. Honestly, we are trying to really be grounded in accountability, showing that this isn't only a podcast about justice, but it's a podcast that's produced through justice. And so when it comes to community consultation, we want to make sure that the organizations that we're collaborating with, like South Baltimore Community Land Trust, like Hip Hop Caucus, like CEEJH Inc., really making sure that these organizations are having a say in all of the workflow from selection to story to framing all the way to tone. And when it comes to local knowledge integration, we are really making sure that we treat local wisdom as data. And so what does oral histories, ancestral memories, and neighborhood and archives look like that aren't just like anecdotes? You know, this is evidence. This is some true information that we can cite that is credible. And I do want to talk a little bit about power sharing. We talked a little bit about making sure our decision making is horizontal. And so like the team members and the collaborators, we're talking editorial authority and having the community partners actually review and approve how they are being represented. One concrete way to do that is to make sure that there are signed community review agreements and shared revenue reinvestment plans. That can really ensure that the benefits cycle back into the community education programs like the Bullard Book Club or other EJ trainings or workshops that will come out of this podcast. And so, yeah, I do want to pass it over to Jamani to go over our marketing and close us out.
Yeah. And just for marketing strategies, you know, every podcast has different advertisements and things and such. So we had one that we just wanted to share.
Sakobi Sweet Treats.
So good, it'll make your plate say,
I do.
So thank you. That's our presentation, and we appreciate feedback as well as any questions, comments. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. I think Nora uh fell off. He and I were texting, so I'll just move on to ask you all's questions. But I put a couple of questions in the chat for you, but your last comments, Octavia, you addressed some of those questions in terms of the decolonial story flow. So could you be a little more specific though and walk us through some concrete examples? You talked about that horizontal decision-making process, but could you be a little more specific in terms of providing examples like how will the model function after the interview is recorded? Like what steps are you taking to ensure that community storytellers have real power in deciding how their story is shared and edited and presented to the public?
Yes, I think that it's really going to be important for, I'll say CEEJH for just foundational reasons, for CEEJH to have editorial options. And so if a community is coming to us and saying that they want to have conversations about what's going on um, in their circles, we, go through all of the things, record the podcast, and hopefully in those initial conversations, we are being sure that we're able to have a plan on how does this equity, how do the outcomes directly impact the communities that we are trying to serve or the communities that are coming to us. And so afterwards, that would be a very specific review. Um, I don't think that, well, the timeline wouldn't be, let's say we record on a Wednesday, we probably wouldn't have that recording put out until maybe that next week or the week after even, just to be sure that everyone is taking their time and actually understanding what story are we trying to present, and is this going to be um, is this going to be a way that we are representing these communities well? Is this their platform overall? So that's what I hope to ensure as we are developing this podcast overall, is that on the end of things, instead of just kind of calling it a day, we edit it, we turn it in, we are continuing these conversations with the communities that we are pulling from the information from and who are actually coming to CEEJH to seek platforms.
Thank you so much. And then I just have one last question for you all, and it's just a point of maybe further development for you to think about, since I already gave you basically a very in-depth evaluation of your assignment via email. But so in the sample transcript that you guys shared, and maybe Antonio, you may have more insight into this. Jarrell shared a little bit about powerfully about how his father in the steel mill connects to his health outcomes, which is a classic EJ narrative, right? So collectively, I need for you guys to think about how will the series handle the potential for trauma storytelling or emotional burnout in the audience? And are you thinking of ways to balance stories of harm with narratives of joy, resilience, and future building to create more of like a holistic experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me personally, um, I don't necessarily think of things as necessarily have to be like a 50-50 balance. Um, I think of sometimes stories of utility and not to take away the humanity, but sometimes stories are what they are. And we don't necessarily need to sugarcoat things. I do think we could and should incorporate any kind of maybe you can call it a trigger warning or any kind of advisement, like, this is what you're listening to. Um, but the intent, at least from my view, and by keeping that in the transcript, is that these stories are really important. Um, as much as people connect to joy, people may also connect through trauma, but the intention is not for it to be trauma porn in that sense. the intention is not to, give elaborate details on sickness and grief in that way, but more for inspiration and connection. And if Jamani and Octavia, they want to jump in as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, some of those episodes would need a little bit like of a warning for some people, or like trigger warning, if you will, like Antonio shared. But I think what's beautiful about most of these conversations is kind of that joy that's already exchanged when you have that authentic relationship with somebody, or you're building a relationship or having like a genuine conversation. Is like that joy is sparked organically throughout that, even as like laughing in the conversation about like the bird flying over the head, but you didn't see um in that overall video was talking about some of the more um the 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 communities that Akima deals with are very like heavily stressed communities. And so kind of bringing in those other elements as to how we're able to connect with each other. Also, I mean, how culture and humor is also rooted in those things. So I think as hosts, I think it'll be our jobs to kind of bring in the joy into those conversations, and choosing what things to kind of draw on within those conversations as well, and elaborate on.
Thank you so much for sharing. Octavia, did you want to add anything before we end?
The last point I did want to add is, in addition to everything Jamani and Antonio said, I hope that we are looking for professionals in that space, in the space of trauma, in the space of communicating trauma through media, especially those people that are from those communities, because there are professionals that resonate with the stories and what our mission is. And if they're formally vetted, in a way that would make sense also for our budget and all of the things, I think it would be important for us to lean on professionals that are in the movement too.
Thanks so much. Well, you guys did a really great job. For those of us that are watching via stream, we appreciate you watching via stream. Thanks for texting me your questions. Do join us tomorrow if you have time. Tomorrow we will um, pick back up at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will have our fellows Dawood, who is from Ivory Coast, and Diana, who is from the state of Michigan here in the United States. And then next week, we will be presented with fellows from Mexico, Kenya, Ghana, and Pakistan. So we look forward to seeing everybody there. Appreciate all of you. Great job, y'all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.